and that was Don't Panic by Coldplay, the first track off of their 2000 album Parachutes, the album of the week for this week. Everyone knows Coldplay. I feel like I don't really need to introduce them, but obviously Chris Martin being the front man that most people will recognise.
I mean, it's amazing that he's managed to balance his career being a musician and also playing for teams like Derby County and Fulham. It's pretty impressive.
I'm not gonna lie, that joke's gone over my
head.
head.
As just a footballer also called Chris Martin.
The joke went completely over my head. I'm sorry.
I mean, as it normally does.
Yeah, and so Coldplay, just as a little background, they were formed in 1996, so 4 years before this album was released. They released a couple of EPs before this album. With actually, I can't remember what song it is. I think it's Trouble, or no, High Speed. Sorry, was on a previous EP. So there's one track on here isn't actually new. But yeah, so his first studio album, and there's the track from here that I think everyone will know, Yellow. We'll be playing that later. Everyone knows that song. Kind of gave him worldwide fame. I think this album is kind of Radiohead inspired. I kind of hear like a Radiohead inspiration on it.
Yeah, it's definitely like a product of like, I feel like it's definitely inspired from something like the Bends.
Yeah, I think the Bends and OK Computer, I can hear both of those in this.
Yeah, there's like little tiny moments of OK Computer. I'd say it's more of the Bends personally, but I mean, I feel like you probably know more Radiohead than I do, so you can feel free to prove me wrong.
No, I'd see it as both.
Yeah,
but yeah, so it got actually quite a varied like reviews when it came out. So Q magazine gave it 4 stars, Pitchfork gave it 5.3 out of 10, NME gave it 9 out of 10. And the Rolling Stone magazine gave it 3.5 stars, so it's quite varied.
Coldplay are one of those bands, like there are some people who just like, even before they became really charty, that's not a word, but it is now.
Poppy.
They've always been that band where some people are like, oh, they're just boring, and like a lot of people, but like it's one of those things. Not everyone. I mean, they're obviously immensely popular, but there's a large section of people who just really don't like Coldplay.
Yeah, the album did debut at number 1 on the UK album charts, and it's gone 9 times platinum. So it's a popular album. Popular album.
Mad.
However, saying all that, Chris Martin has said that this album is, and I quote, terrible music. So
really?
Yeah, he's not a fan of it. And the fact I was telling you about this earlier, that I have a fact about this album which is interesting. The album's banned from China for, and I quote, inflammatory political content.
Does it specify in which?
There's a particular song, we'll get onto that later,
okay,
and we'll get into it a bit more then. But there was one song in particular, but not really an album that I really no,
it's
thought of that.
Like as you're saying, obviously you didn't tell me the fact beforehand, but it's the whole thing of like, of all the albums we've done, like you'd maybe think that's something like, oh, OK Computer maybe, or like
Nirvana album.
Yeah. But no, it's Parachutes, like Coldplay, like arguably like the most inoffensive band ever created.
Okay, so I think like the album kind of tries to transport you into this like dystopian world from the first track, Don't Panic, which we just played, where it's talking about how there's obviously like this beautiful world, and in terms of the song, it's kind of talking about, I think, natural disasters, like destroying the world and stuff. But I think it's a nicer meaning. It means a little bit more to me when you think about humans destroying the earth a little bit more. In terms of the sound of the track, though, I like how when you listen to this song with headphones on, it starts in your left ear and then just comes into your right ear, and then Chris Martin comes in singing. Like, it's a nice little way to bring you into.
Yeah,
the
I love
album.
the I'm pretty sure it's. I didn't necessarily check, but I've just from sort of hearing it, like there's a nice use of what I've talked about before. So hot rods, obviously, like those drumsticks that you use. But when you're doing like an acoustic track, to obviously because you want to create a bit just softer. It just sounds really nice on this one. It's like it's got a nice like sort of like rhythm, like dum da, like it's cool, man. There's some nice sort of little guitar riffs throughout this album, and this is one of them. It's just got a nice little like it doesn't sound anything too like it doesn't sound like anything too difficult or sophisticated, but it just got a really nice sound to it.
I think it takes you into this nice little world of
exactly
this dystopian world. I think this whole album is nice to think about, is that the world was destroyed in the first track, and you've got to kind of think that they're living on this very plain earth, and the only thing that matters to Chris Martin at this point is love. And this whole album is like, this dystopian world almost acts as like a vacuum for love.
I feel like that's pretty spot on.
And then you go into the second track, which Chris Martin described as the stalking song, Shiver.
Yeah, it very much reminds me of, do you know the song by The Police, Every Breath You Take?
Yeah,
it's sort of like it's that similar thing of like obviously like just sort of waiting for someone and like just sort of biding your time and that sort of thing. I think this might be, in terms of vocals, this might be the best Chris Martin vocal performance on this album.
Okay.
I really like his voice on this one. He just sounds really. It just sound. He's actually a fairly underrated singer. I think he's got a nice.
Yeah, he has got a nice voice. Definitely.
He's got like just as a whole. I think just this whole album in general, like the first 2 songs in particular, they just have a really nice sound. Like it's very pleasant to listen to.
Yeah, this isn't one of my favorite songs on the album, but
I'd say this one's up there. I just I think
I find it kind of creepy.
I think that's maybe why I quite like it. It's just like I think it's interesting.
I originally thought when I was listening to it, it was like someone on their deathbed, like an ex-lover was on their deathbed, and he wanted to be there for him or her, but they obviously didn't want him there, but then once reading into it, Chris Martin basically tells you what it's about. With it being about unrequited love and just always wanting to be there for someone even though they don't love you back. And as much as it's a nice sentiment and stuff like that, I feel like we'll get onto this a little bit more. That and things down a similar vein are kind of explored too much in this album. I feel like it's kind of samey.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my criticisms of the album as a whole. Was like it does sometimes recycle stuff in terms of what it's talking about. A lot like it's in the way that Scouting for Girls did that as well. Yeah, obviously. Coldplay and Scouting for Girls, I wouldn't really normally use them in the same sentence, but I am in this case.
I mean, if we're talking about Scouting for Girls, they got a track, Wish I Was James Bond, and this next track was inspired. That is a
beautiful segue, Ryan. I rate that very much.
It's a James Bond inspired track. This next one, Spies. They said that they made this. I can't remember what film it was in particular, but there was a James Bond film in particular that they made this not for but inspired from, if that makes sense.
I mean, if I'm guessing sort of from the time periods, it's 2000, it probably would have been either something like, it would have been from the Brosnan era, so it potentially could have been like either GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, or The World Is Not Enough, perhaps. But they worked with John Barry on this track, and he obviously scored loads of the James Bond films. He's like a really good composer, actually, like because the James Bond films just have some brilliant scores to them. I really like that. I really like a lot of the film scores from that series of films. So it's cool that he's on this track as well. Like it's just
it's my favorite song on the album, I think.
I would. I think I would. It's definitely top 2.
And it again throws you back into that dystopian world from that first track, and it's a very paranoid song. And I don't know if have you read or watched the TV show The Handmaid's Tale?
I know of. I went looking into it.
I haven't seen the TV show, so it might be slightly different. So people listening who have only seen the TV show and not read the book might not really understand.
Yeah, I know it more as a book.
Yeah, so I've read it as a book, and it kind of this track would really suit that TV show or the book, because it's obviously Handmaid's Tale is about like the government, obviously always like watching people and stuff like that, and Spies is literally kind of about that with there's always people watching you no matter what you're doing and stuff like that. It's interesting.
It's kind of like 1984 as well, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, so
obviously
it's similar,
there's no reference. There's no reference to that actually being an influence, but like I can see it being used in that.
And this was the song that got it banned in China.
Now it kind of makes sense.
Now it kind of makes sense,
yeah.
Yeah. See, now as well, just going back to the dystopian idea, as much as I think a big criticism of this album is that a lot more could have been done with a concept here, because the first track, it kind of throws you into this dystopian world. Then the second track, it just completely forgets about that world and starts talking about love. And then the third track, it goes back into the dystopian world. And it's kind of like conflicted for me. Like it has a bit of an identity crisis for me.
Yeah, what it could be, it's obviously like trying to, I guess, sort of show and describe the environment, and then obviously it's like, and then it will cut back to like obviously people within that world telling you a bit about them and what they're going through. Maybe that's what they're trying to do, but I still take your point. It's not
completely coherent.
The transitions aren't like it's not
it's a little bit jaded, but I agree with what you're saying. It almost seems like they've made this dystopian world to act as a vacuum for love, and then love can be explored in this vacuum because there's nothing else going on in this world. It's not like, oh, I was at work and this has happened. It's all just the idea of the emotion that he's dealing with. So I take it on board, but it's not entirely coherent. Next track, Sparks, very chilled and relaxing song. After like Spies, which is quite an intense paranoid song. I think it in terms of the track listing, this makes sense after Spies. Maybe a continuation of Shiver, because he's saying, "Did I drive you away?" So maybe he's driven her away from the stalking from that second track. What you think about this?
Not a huge fan.
Really?
I find it.
Really?
I just find it's just not very interesting. I find it just quite boring musically,
Okay.
and I just think what the song is about in general. Like I think it's just not that interesting. Like it's been done better on.
Mm-hmm.
It's been done better by other artists. It's been done better by Coldplay themselves.
Okay.
Like weakest track on the album. I don't hate it.
Really? Okay.
But
wow.
I just. It's arguably I'd probably say at the minute probably the weakest track. I find it a bit dull.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that. I think it's probably top 3 tracks on here for me, or maybe fourth. But yeah, it's part of. I think this is part of the best 3-track run on the album. I think Spies, Sparks, and then Into Yellow, which everyone knows, is the 3 best tracks in a row on this album. And I think. I don't know. It's just something about it's like the emotion in Chris Martin's voice where he's saying I saw sparks. It's like it's quite sad and heartbreaking. Like he's obviously seen something special in this woman, and he thinks it will go somewhere and it'd be something special. And it I think you can just hear the emotion. I think that's why I like it.
Yeah.
It's more sonic than like lyricism or anything like that. I think you can just hear the sadness and. It's just a bit of an emotion. I
do think though at the same time it is just quite dull.
No. Okay, no, I'll take that on board. Yeah, I think I do like quite laid back and dull songs sometimes.
Yeah, so do I. Like I can definitely get down with that sort of style, but I just don't think this is a good example of that.
Okay. But then going into possibly the opposite of dull, Yellow.
Oh yeah. I really like this one.
Yep.
I'd say it's possibly the best track on the album.
Okay.
Like it's just got a really nice like melody.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's I really just like the sort of I really just sort of like as well like the sort of the lyrics on this one as well.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of because obviously how Yellow is quite a loud, vibrant, like bright color.
Yeah, happy.
And it just I think it's quite a clever way of conveying like I see it as sort of being like describing sort of the start of like a potential relationship or like I can imagine like Chris Martin's like come back from his like first date and he's just like in like a really really good mood and like he's just like I really like it. It's just it's quite I do like I think it's kind of the cool thing to be sort of like I just really love like depressing songs and songs that are really sad, but which I do like a good sad song, but at the same time I do love like just a really good upbeat happy song.
You've got to have
and
both.
this is a good example of that. I really enjoy this one. I enjoy Yellow.
I also like how the song's actually about Chris Martin writing a song for a girl called Yellow.
Oh really?
Yeah, because
cool.
I can't remember the lyrics. I'll get it up now quickly and see if I can grab it. But yeah, it's about him writing a song for a girl called Yellow. So he says, and it was called Yellow. That's him saying that's what the song he's writing for.
That's
girl
clever.
is.
Yeah, that is really clever because obviously like as well like that's you could say that's him sort of just describing how he feels like all the atmosphere around him, like everything around him. But actually it's like a nice little like. Sort of like double meaning.
Yeah. So he says, and I'll quote: "I came along, I wrote a song for you, and all the things you do, and it was called Yellow." So that's him there, and then the rest of it from there on, I read as him kind of talking about how he then falls in love with her after that song. Because not gonna lie, if I was a girl and a guy like Chris Martin wrote a song called Yellow for me, I think that'd probably work. So
it certainly wouldn't hurt, would it?
No, but as long as it was good. But so
that's true.
Yeah, it's just a track where he's completely smitten with this girl.
I mean, if Chris Martin had written me Sparks, I probably wouldn't be wouldn't be huge on it. But
yeah, see, I would.
If he wrote me Yellow, I'd be all over him, man.
Yeah, of course. But I kind of think. Then I'm really trying to bring this concept together because I feel like there is something there that could be talked about.
Yeah, I don't necessarily.
And
At times, I do feel like you are just trying to find
Yeah,
this concept that maybe isn't there.
Yeah.
Maybe it just is a collection of songs that have some similar themes.
Yeah, it just feels like a shame, because there should be a concept there, because this dystopian world that he's created is such a good idea for him to explore this love. And then he's talking about earlier on about that unrequited love, and someone talks about in, I think it's Shiver. Yeah, in Shiver she says, "Sing one you know," and maybe she is referring to this track, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But again, I may be going too deep into this, but either way, let's give you guys a break from listening to us. This is Rock and Radio, and this is Yellow by Coldplay.
Yellow by Coldplay there, and if you're just joining us, you're listening to Rebel Essex Rock and Radio with Mark Murphy and Ryan Gladwin. And if you're just joining us, we're in the middle of reviewing Parachutes, the debut Coldplay album. After Yellow we get into Trouble. It's the next track, I believe.
Yep.
I really like this one. I think that, again, this is up there as one of my favourites off the album. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourites, but it's all right. Like it's one of those okay tracks on the album. I like the story behind. To be honest, see, a big downfall for me with the album. There's not much layers to a lot of the songs, but for this song is quite an interesting. Story
I do find this album as a whole, like the actual like sort of stories, I guess, of the songs are quite interesting. But in terms of actual like how the songs came about, like there's not really much to a lot of them. But this one's I find really interesting.
Yeah. This is the most interesting one, obviously. So it's talking about maybe about how Chris Martin fired an ex-drummer from Coldplay just after they got a record deal, and he was saying about how they felt the pressures that their music should be perfect. So Chris Martin came out and actually confirmed that this is what happened. And one time they were just having a jam session, and he got angry at the drummer and just turned around and fired him. And Chris Martin has since came out and realised that was the wrong thing to do. He realised soon after that music's not meant to be perfect; it's meant to be organic. And maybe when it is perfect, it sounds fake and too commercialised and stuff like that. And he said he heavily regretted this, and it does link in with the idea of love going throughout this album. It's platonic love, obviously, and it's quite a beautifully sounding track.
Yeah, so Will Champion, who's the drummer, obviously, who got kicked out. I think they brought him back, actually.
Did they?
I'm pretty sure they did from looking into it. I'm pretty sure they did.
Okay.
So that's if that's the case, and that's obviously good to have Will back. Will on the kit, right? Yeah. I just really like this one. I think as well, like just musically, it's really nice. It's got some nice. You got like the nice piano sort of stuff. I think it's just a really nice sort of touching like sentiment to Will. I really like this one. It's a very good tune.
Yeah. See, this is this is a nice track for me. It's nothing I love. I don't love the track. It's just nice, and it goes into the title track, Parachutes, which is almost an interlude on the album.
I'd say it is, and it's one of those things we've had a few albums with interludes and stuff, and we've normally credited those interlude tracks as like obviously not being like the best song, being one of the weaker songs of the album, but like serving its purpose of like linking two tracks together that wouldn't work. But I asked myself the question: does this interlude need to exist? Does it to like bring in these two songs together? Does it need like I feel like you could just have these two songs next to each other on the album and it wouldn't
100%.
I just think it's a nice little sound.
It's a waste of 50 seconds.
Yeah, it's like a fine like song on its own, but it's not needed.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the cases where interlude it's just interlude tracks sometimes are just pointless. They're just a waste of
it was a waste of time, a waste of a track, really. And like I said earlier, like this is where I really, really get tired of Chris Martin talking about unrequited love and him like not getting love from this girl.
We get it, Chris.
Like,
you're in love.
Yeah,
stop rubbing it in.
You're in love and she doesn't love you. Get over it. Move on. Like it is so. And maybe in 2 tracks' time, that's what he's trying to talk about. But my God, this is where really, as someone who really loves diving into lyrics, something that I really get bored of at this point. And this next track is quite refreshing when it's not about unrequited love. And but it's still about love. It's always about love.
Yeah.
It's more about the idea of how to love. Does anyone know how correctly to love? And it like the idea of like, because the way I like to look at life in general, to be honest, is that no one here really knows what they're doing, if that makes sense. Like, everyone's just kind of guessing what they're doing. Even Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's never done it before. He's just he's learning as he's doing it. And this kind of like takes that idea into love, is that everyone going into a relationship doesn't really know what's going on. They're just kind of exploring it and just trying to learn how to do it as they go.
Yeah, there's like with High Speed, there's some good there's some, I think there's some nice lyrics on here. This is another one that I actually I do really enjoy, actually.
Yeah.
Can anybody fly this thing? I think that's just I think that's quite poignant. Or is it? Just about things going fast and just like in a good way though. Like because quite often when people say, "Oh, things going like really quickly," like people say it in a negative way. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of in a way of like, "Oh, everything's happening quickly, but I'm enjoying the ride." Okay. Like, obviously, will I be able to maintain it? I don't know, but like, it's another one. This is another track I do really enjoy.
I kind of see him talking about the speed as a negative thing. Funny you say that, because so you saying, "Can anybody fly this thing?" Like, yeah, that is. But coming in with that is it kicks the track off very nicely. But then on the second verse, he then says, "Can anybody stop this thing?" And it's almost like things are going so fast. He's kind of scared about the whole thing, and like he said, that he doesn't know how to love, and he doesn't know how to fly this like craft of a relationship. And he's like, "How do I just stop it? Like, how do I stop a relationship? How do I get myself out of this mess?" kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could interpret it as like not necessarily like, can you stop it? Oh, because I don't like it or whatever. Mm-hmm. It could just mean as in like, could anyone stop this? Like, could like.
Okay. Yeah.
That's sort of the way I'm interpreting that.
Okay, I see that.
Like, can anyone stop it? Can I like? Can someone? Arguably, like, could someone else come along and?
Yeah. Is it a non-movable force? Is this relationship going to be forever? Like, I really like that.
I feel like that's more what it's trying to say.
Okay,
but there's definitely logic to where you're coming from.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how again it goes back to that dystopian sound that I've been talking about on some of those tracks. I'm kind of giving up with the idea of it being in this dystopian world, but the sound on these is very like, it's like kind of scary. It does feel like they're in just like a vacant earth and stuff like that. It kind of feels like it's in outer space.
There is some really cool like production stuff on this track, actually. And when you said earlier about it linking to possibly some OK Computer influence, this is one of the songs where I'm like, there's like little moments where they have like some nice little production sounds, and like I think this is definitely like Chris Martin's definitely heard a bit of OK Computer and has had a good time with the album, as have we.
Yeah. And we'll move on to the next track, We Never Change. This is one of my top, I'd say top 3 tracks on the album.
Again, I enjoy this one. It's sort of like a it's sort of a very like sort of very reflective, just on life throughout history. Like, we never like, obviously, so like we just as humans, like, we're always just quite destructive. We never really change. It's
see this is what I like about art in general, to be honest, and in particular music, because music's definitely my favourite art form, is that a song like this can have multiple readings in like what you're saying with human nature, which I think is the wider meaning we all have to take away from this, is we will never change. Like, if coming down to the environment and stuff like that, as much as we're trying to make a change, we're not really making a change. As much as we want to, we're really struggling. Like,
it reminds me, actually, I remember, was it a few weeks ago? I remember you on your own like personal Twitter account. You said that thing. What was it about? I can't remember. I'm paraphrasing.
People only care about the environment when they don't have to make a change.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I was like, actually, that is a very good point.
Yeah, like people will moan to no extent about having to use a paper straw, but like, get over it. Like, it's trying to help the environment.
Yeah, can I just say that whole thing was just ridiculous. Like, the fact that was a thing that like people were getting like upset about. It's just
just get over it. Like, if you really care that much, bring your own plastic straw, or you know what, metal straws are meant to be really good. I haven't invested in a metal straw, but like, they're meant to be obviously good for the environment.
I've never used a metal straw.
Yeah, but because obviously it keeps the drink cold. with the metal. Apparently, it's meant to be quite good. One of my friends is actually invested in one, so I'll report back one day about how that is. But yeah, so saying about how there could be multiple readings into this album, into this song, sorry. It could also be about addiction, where you never change and you can never get out of an addiction, and that can also refer back to the human nature thing.
And maybe the addiction he's talking about is love.
Yep, there we go. And see, this is a love album, to say the least.
It is.
Yeah, and
it is.
But I kind of read into this as not a positive love song. This one, it's more about how he's in a bit of a toxic relationship, and this relationship is never gonna change for the good. And he wishes it could be. Like, he wishes he could save this relationship and this relationship could become good, but he like physically can't. Like, he cannot fix this relationship.
I've just had a thought, actually. So obviously you have quite a few love songs on this album, and it's talking about these different aspects of it. And I'm just sort of thinking, like, obviously you're sort of coming up with this sort of like sort of idea of like, oh, it's like a dystopian theme, like it's sort of like these people left in the world. The way I sort of think, maybe it's like maybe so like there's not just like two people left on the world, maybe there's like a few people, like a group of people like spread out across the world, and like Chris Martin keeps meeting different individual like women or whatever, and each individual song is about a different woman that he's met since the apocalypse. That's just like, I've literally just thought of that now. It's not a fully fleshed idea, but
that's something I'd obviously have to look a little bit more into. But yeah, there's an interesting thought, actually. Yeah, it definitely could, because it doesn't seem like the love songs have a coherent path throughout them all, because at one point he's stalking one, the next one he thought there was a relationship there, and then Yellow, he's in love, and it is interesting. But yeah, it's just quite a sad track, like the idea of love that should exist, but unfortunately for one reason or another it's just not going to work.
Should we get into Everything's Not Lost?
Yeah, of course.
It's I mean, it's a fine song. Like it's sort of like uplifting. There's some nice guitar stuff in it. That's all I can say, really. There's not much else to say. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this one.
This is probably my least favourite track on the
album. To me it's just sort of there.
Yeah.
Like it's
such a nothing song.
Yeah, as I said, like it's nice. Like it's got a nice sort of sense. Yeah. It's a nice sentiment.
Yeah, the idea of like not giving up, like dragging yourself up from the floor, and maybe it's because I don't fully relate to the song, and maybe people who do relate to the song will say this is an incredible song, but it's just the idea of you being so beaten by love, and you're like on the floor, and like you feel like there's nothing left. You just want to die, and like he talks about that, and him saying like, no, like there's more to life than just loving a human. Like I suppose it's a nice sentiment, but yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a nothing song.
I guess you could say it's sort of like the bookend. So like he's obviously met all these people throughout this like dystopian world, and he's come to realise, maybe I shouldn't be trying to love people, like try and find love. So good on you, Chris, if that is the case. But that concludes like the album properly.
And I think that would be a nice way to end it as well.
That's like it does that. I think this song does serve its purpose of like it ends the album like it concludes it. Yeah. Like obviously every song concludes an album. Do you know what I mean? Like it, like in terms of the theme.
Yeah. In terms of like the ideas and the themes going through, for sure, definitely. But then there is a hidden track soon after with Life Is For Living. What are you thinking about that one?
I do think it definitely seems like a song that's not fully fleshed, which is a shame, because I'm enjoying it, and I feel like if this was maybe, like more long, if it was longer and maybe worked on, wrote some more lyrics, I'd like this one a lot. But yeah, it's just not it's just not long enough, unfortunately, which is a shame, because it's a decent little number.
See, just Chris Martin's just getting sucked back into love. And I thought we were over with it. I thought Everything's Not Lost. He's over love.
See, this is what I mean. This is why I don't officially count it as being part of the album. Because like bonus tracks, like there's always like this massive gap, and I feel like normally the bonus track isn't normally anything to do with an album necessarily. Yeah. It's just there for like a little Easter egg, and I think this is just what it is. Yeah,
it was like you wait for this hidden track, and it was just kind of like, oh, do we have to do this again, kind of thing for me. And I'm not a fan of the bonus track at all, really. Maybe if you're really wanting to grasp at straws about it, maybe it's kind of an Inspector Calls kind of thing, where
linking to perhaps
Yeah.
earlier track, "We Never Change." He
Yeah,
says, "Oh, I don't
literally.
need love," and then at the end, it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
falling back in love again."
Yeah, that's the only way I think you can give this track any sort of credit. I think personally, but just what's your overall thoughts of this album? And now we've finished.
So it's a good sound. It's a nice sounding album. I'll say that firstly. It's got some nice music on it, which it's always nice. It's just pleasant it's a pleasant on the ears kind of album. Like if you're just, it's an album that you could stick on and it's like I'd say lyrically it's interesting, man. Like when sort of looking into it, there's a lot more to this album than I realized when looking into it. I think Coldplay, and this is why it frustrates me that Coldplay, I've just become, I feel quite terrible now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's potential here, and I feel like they go on to do much better stuff as well. Like Russia, Blood to the Head, I believe is the next album after this, and that's really good, man. That's a really good album actually.
It's got The Scientist on there.
Yeah, it's got some interesting ideas, interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's sort of, as I said earlier, it sort of recycles some stuff, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah.
So as for a score,
okay,
I think I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
7.5.
7.5.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. See, as what I'll say is, obviously I dive probably too far into the lyrics and the concept behind this album, but I do think it had potential, and that's kind of what
you're not wrong, to be fair. Like from you saying it, I am sort of like and it's got me thinking like on spontaneously.
Yeah, it really could have been something a lot more, and yeah, like you said, it repeats itself a little bit too much with the themes and stuff like that, and I do get very bored by the end of Chris Martin talking about how much he loves someone and how much they don't love him. Like, okay, I'm over it now. But in saying that, it is just in terms of the sound, like before, I listened to this album quite a few times before diving really into the lyrics, just like having it on the background while playing FIFA or something like that, and it is just a lovely sound, and the album does have a clear identity of what it wants to be. The 3 tracks, Spies, Into Sparks, Into Yellow, is for me a highlight on the album, with those 3 songs in the row. And then unfortunately the interlude track Parachutes kind of lets it down, and We Never Change, probably another highlight on the album for me.
High Speed, I'd say.
Trouble
I enjoy. High
Speed I like.
Trouble I enjoy as well.
But yeah, so the whole idea of love and this dystopian way, I wish it was a bit more coherent, and they could have done a little bit more. But in terms of standalone tracks, there's a lot of good standalone tracks on there.
Exactly.
And you can't fault the album for that.
So
if this was the first album I heard of Coldplay, I really would have been excited for the next album kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the next album they delivered.
Yeah.
So what are you feeling for a rating?
7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar.
Pretty similar. I don't believe in 0.5s.
The only reason I do that is because like I feel like it's there are some albums where I'm like, it's not a 7, it's not an 8, and I need some sort of like.
See, that's why I like rating out of 10s instead of 5s. I kind of see 10s.
Yeah, out of 10s is a better way to it because it gives you more. But I still feel like I need that 0.5.
Either way, let's get into We Never Change, and I Will Never Change, and put 0.5s in my ratings by Coldplay.